मते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिनि नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणि निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणि जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. I welcome all of you to the second session on second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we began the discussion on second chapter of Gita last week. In the last week, we saw that in the first 10 verses, Arjuna was still feeling perplexed as to whether he should fight war or not. And so therefore he humbly submits himself to Lord Krishna. Yat Shreyasam Nishitam Bruhi Tanme, he says, what is Shreyas, what is for my ultimate happiness? Nishitam Bruhi Tanme. Please, without any confusion, don't create any ambiguity. Nishitam Bruhi Tanme. Inform me conclusively what I should be doing, whether I should fight the war or not. And as a response to that, Bhagavan immediately punishes Arjuna because that is the position of a teacher. Because Arjuna was willing to accept Krishna as his teacher, Krishna immediately assumed the role of a teacher, and since the role of teacher is to reform a student, sometimes punishment is required. So he started by saying, you are speaking like an intelligent person, but you are worrying for something that is not worthy of grief. That's how he starts to explain. And the reason why it is not worthy of grief is because Arjuna was placing his compassion towards the body. Body is anyway perishable. Even if we happen to live a healthy life, we can at most live for 100 or 120 years. And the body is meant to be destroyed at some point of time in future. It is just the question of when and how. Some people die early, some people will die after old age. It may be a natural death, or some people may die out of heart attack while working in the gym. Anyone is going to die. So because this body is anyway going to be destroyed, and you are worrying for the body just like a fool. An intelligent person should not worry for body, because the Atma which is inside the body is the real person. And that person, fortunately, that Atma is eternal, unlike the body which perishes. And he explains the qualities of Atma through various verses that we saw in the last session. He said this Atma is everlasting. It is the very form of knowledge. The Atma's form itself is knowledge. The Atma is beyond these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, that characterize this material universe. And there is no instrument that can detect the Atma, or there is no weapon that can destroy this Atma. No fire can burn this Atma. Those are the unlimited glories of Atma. And everyone is Atma. And if one dies in the war, that is just a natural course of action that is followed as a result of fighting the war, and that person will get the next birth. So what is there to worry in this? So in the matter of execution of the duty, Madras Varshastu Kauntaya, Sitoshna Sukadukada, Agama Payana Anitya, Tanti Tikshva Bharata. In the matter of execution of the duty, sometimes we may have to face some unlikely situations. Sometimes we may be faced with victory, and that situations that we like to be in. So we should not be affected by both situations. Rather, we should learn to tolerate, because it is happening in the course of performance of action, duty. So there is no need to worry for any reason. This is how Bhagavan tries to convince Arjuna to fight the war. So he introduces the knowledge of Atma, Atmanyanam, in the first half of the second chapter. So does it mean that after hearing the first half of the second chapter, we will be established in the knowledge of Atma? The answer is no, because here the glories of Atma are explained in order to make us realize what our position is. Just by merely understanding the glories of Atma, one will not be established in the Atma Jnana. So for that, Karma Yoga is required. So initially, Bhagavan was trying to convince Arjuna by saying that if you fight this war, you will be able to attain the heavenly kingdom, which Kshatriyas attain. If you die, if you happen to win this kingdom, win the war, you will be enjoying this earthly kingdom. So in this way, he was inducing Arjuna by showing various benefits of the results of the war. And that is called Sakama Karma Yoga, where one is interested in the results of performing the duty and is performing the duty. So rather than not performing the duty with results is still a lot better. But this is not the ultimate consciousness. There is something better that we can also think of. So Bhagavan transitions to Nishkama Karma Yoga. So he starts to say, okay, you are not interested in this heavenly kingdom, I understand. You are also not interested in attaining, you are not interested in the earthly kingdom, and you are also not interested in attaining the heavenly kingdom. Both you are rejecting, fine. So I am now going to propose you to act without the expectation of the result. Okay, I am not going to act without the expectation of result. What is the point of acting then? Amritatvaya kalpate. Bhagavan says, you will attain deathlessness. Oh, one may be shocked to hear how merely by performing the duty without expecting the results, one may achieve mukti. It is counterintuitive. I am merely performing my action, and Bhagavan says, if you perform without expecting the results, by giving the results to me, you will attain Amritam. You will attain the state of deathlessness. This doesn't sound logical. So therefore, Bhagavan has to explain now how by performing the Karma Yoga without expecting the results, one can achieve the position of Atma. So this example is often given. If there is a well in the village and that was left unattended for many years, what will happen is a thin layer of algae would form on the surface of the water, at the top surface of the water. And slowly the dust keeps accumulating. And the whole of the well will be full of cobwebs, full of dirty things, and because no one has gone to fetching the water to that well. So what one should do is, first one should employ a few people to clear the well of the dirt. So we have to make some people enter the well. One has to remove the layer of algae, and if one removes a green layer of algae, then the fresh water will come from underneath, from under the ground, isn't it? So exactly the same process is prescribed. Now, in this position where we all of us are, there is generally this consciousness is impure, our mind is impure, because of being accustomed to performing the Kamya Karma for many, many millions of lives. Having accustomed to performing the Kamya Karma, and because of the presence of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moga, Madam, Ashcharyam in the mind, one is not able to perceive the presence of Atma. So Atma Jnanam can only arise in a pure mind, in a very pure mind. If there is a sense desire, if there is desire for gratification of the senses, if there is desire of achieving something in the world, then that mind is impure, and in such an impure mind, the Atma Jnanam will not flourish. It is just like a well that is left unattended for many years. So if we remove the layer of algae, the clean water from underground will start to come. Similarly, by performing the Karma Yoga, the result is Chitta Shuddhi, purification of consciousness. Chitta means consciousness. Chitta Shuddhi is a result of Karma Yoga. That is akin to removing the dirt from the well. So when we remove the dirt from the well, when we remove the layer of algae, pure water automatically comes without any effort. So when the mind gets purified, when the chitta gets purified by the performance of Karma Yoga, then automatically the knowledge of Atma gets established. So in the second half of this chapter, Bhagavan is speaking about how by acting without expecting for the results, one can be established in the Atmanyanam. He gives the overview of Karma Yoga in the second chapter, and that Karma Yoga is also addressed by the name Buddhi Yoga in this chapter. And in the third chapter, that is in the next chapter, this is second chapter. In the third chapter, he explains in detail the Karma Yoga. So in this chapter, in the first half of the chapter, Bhagavan spoke about the knowledge of Atma, the glories of the Atma as being eternal, as being everlasting, and whose qualities never change, Achalaham, immovable, and who is Nityam, who is Shashvatam. And by all those adjectives, he was describing the Atma. And in the second half of this chapter, he is speaking about the Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, the actions by which one will be established in the Atmanyanam. And that is called Sthita Prajna. So one gets established in the Atmanyanam. Bhagavan calls such a person as Sthita Prajna. So towards the end of the second chapter, Bhagavan will be discussing about the characteristics of Sthita Prajna. What is a symptom? Everyone has certain symptom. What is a symptom? How can I understand a person who is established in Atma or who is called Sthita Prajna? So that he explains in the towards the end of the second chapter. So let us start the today's discussion. I just gave the gist of the second half of the second chapter. So we are dedicating this session to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Now let us enter into the second half of the second chapter. So in the first half of the second half of the second chapter, he was talking about Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga, and then later off he is speaking about Siddha Prajna. So let me just open the book Bhagavad Gita and we'll go through most of the verses. We'll go through at least summary of all the verses and try to understand the second chapter. So in the 38th verse of this chapter, Bhagavan says, you be equal in both happiness and distress. Sukha dukkhe same kritva. Labha labhav jaya jayav. Whether you are in happiness or distress, whether you gain victory or you attain loss, or whether you are gaining something or losing something, you need not worry about that. Tato yuddhaya yujjasva naivam papam avapsyasi. In that way, you will not incur sin, he says. So, he is slowly, gradually introducing the concept of Karma Yoga. So, this is the verse 38 that he is slowly bringing the idea of Karma Yoga. So, I'm just keeping the slide open for you to go through while I'll be explaining the verses and the details of the verses. So, in the 39th verse, Bhagavan says, Yeshete bihita sankhe buddhir yoge tu imam shunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. So far, I have spoken to you the knowledge of Atmanyanam. That is called Sankhya Yogam. Now I am going to speak to you about Buddhi Yogam. So listen to me about this Buddhi Yogam, by which you will be freed from the Karma Bandham. Karma Bandham Prahasyasi. It doesn't mean that the Sankhya Yoga, the Atma Jnanam, is different from Karma Yoga. This Karma Yoga leads to the Jnana of Atma, and then that is the objective of both Sankhya Yoga and Buddhi Yoga is same. I keep changing the words. Sometimes I use Buddhi Yoga, sometimes I use Karma Yoga. Both mean the same, and I will also explain how both mean the same. So, Bhagavan is saying he is going to speak about Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi Yoga means Nishkama Karma Yoga or Karma Yoga, and how that will lead to Karma Bandham Prahasyasi. How by performing the Karma Yoga one can be out of this Karma Bandham, Bhagavan is going to explain now. And he is also encouraging that Neha Vikrama Nasho Asti Pratyavayo na Vidyate Swalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Even if there is only little advancement, suppose if one starts performing the Karma Yoga and one is not able to fulfill all the actions of Karma Yoga to its perfection, still there is no loss, Bhagavan says. Whatever little advancement one makes in this process, it is for his eternal benefit, for the eternal benefit of Atma. And there is no loss. There is no loss. Neha abhikrama nashosti. Abhikrama, just by beginning to act in Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yogam, one is assured of the benefits of Karma Yoga following that Jiva life after life. So if I even do a little bit of Karma Yoga, 1% of Karma Yoga, the result is going to follow me. And in the next life, suppose if I fail performing the Karma Yoga, one is assured of a better life in the next life. Bhagavan gives the next opportunity in the next life, and that Jiva continues to perform the Karma Yoga, Buddhi Yoga. So why is it need to be stressed? Because generally one will attain the results only if one performs the actions, the duties to its perfection. That's what Dharma Shastras say. And also if one performs mistakenly something, so for example, if a Brahmana chants mantra wrongly, then not only that he will not get the positive result of that yajna, he will also incur the negative results. So that's what Bhagavan says. In this Karma Yoga, there is no such danger. If you generally do Varnashrama Dharma, expecting the results, as per Shastras also if you do, you have to do it perfectly to enjoy the results. If you want to enjoy the Swargam in the next life, a Brahmana should perform Jyotishtoma sacrifice. If a Brahmana performs Agnihotra sacrifice daily, then at the end of the life, he will be able to experience the result. So the result is delayed. One has to perform the duty regularly to attain the result. That is the normal course. But if one takes to this Karma Yoga, the result can be experienced immediately. And also, there is no need for one to complete the Karma Yoga to its perfection. Whatever extent one completes the Karma Yoga, one will be able to reap the benefit of Karma Yoga. That is the Chitta Shuddhi. And one can continue to perform Karma Yoga in the next life. And there is no danger, as I said. If a Brahmana chants mantra wrongly, a slight difference in the pronunciation of syllable of a mantra can produce wrong results, can produce negative results also. That danger is also not there in Karma Yoga. So therefore, in this way, Karma Yoga is distinct from the other Varnashrama Dharma and the duties ordained to Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. That is also ordained by Dharma Shastra only. But the benefits of that can be attained only if those activities are performed to its perfection, and also those activities if performed imperfectly, if completed imperfectly, will not give the desired results. So such a disadvantage is not there for Buddhi Yoga, Bhagavan says. So he is giving encouragement to adopt this process of Buddhi Yoga or Karma Yoga. And in Bhagavan in the next verse says, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kurunandana. So the resolute, what is the goal. So I'm now performing Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, Bhagavan is asking one to perform without considering Labha, Labha, Jaya, Jaya. Don't expect victory or loss. Don't think of profit or loss. Just perform for the sake of doing the duty. Now, how can one perform? One has to have some goal. So, is there anything for a Karma Yogi that is goal? The answer is yes. A Karma Yogi also has the goal. And what is then his intelligence is fixed? His intelligence is fixed on Atma. So, Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi. As I already mentioned, I started by giving this analogy. If one wants to fetch water from a impure well, one has to first clear the dirt that is present on the top surface of the water. One has to remove the algae so that the clear water can come out. So similarly, because our consciousness is impure, one has to purify the consciousness, and the action of purifying the consciousness is nothing but this buddhi yoga or karma yoga. And so what happens as a result of this purification of consciousness is one's atma jnanam will flourish. One will be able to one will be established in the atma. So therefore atma is the goal for a karma yogi. That karma yogi may be performing the duties like sacrifice, agnihotra sacrifice, Jyotishtoma sacrifice, all that sacrifice one may be performing. And Vedas say if one performs these activities, one will go to Swarga, this benefit one will get, that benefit one will get. But for a Karma Yogi, he is not performing those yajnas thinking of the benefit. For the Karma Yogi, every action is a means for Chitta Shuddhi, purification. And the Chitta Shuddhi will lead to Atma Jnanam. So his intelligence is fixated on attaining Atma Jnanam or the perception of the self. So therefore, that kind of intelligence where one fixes one's focus on Atma is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. So that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, or here if you want to translate into English, it is the resolute intelligence on Atma. Unwavering intelligence, unwavering focus on Atma as the goal, as the only goal. That is resolute intelligence. So for a Karma Yogi, his goal is fixated on attaining Atma Jnanam. So his result, his objective of performing Karma Yoga is not to experience the results of those actions, those yajnas. The result of performing Karma Yoga is Atma Jnanam. And because he's that Jiva, that Karma Yogi is fixated on attaining the Atma, the intelligence is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Then what about the others who perform activities with the view of expecting some results? For them, Bhagavan says, Bahushaka hi anantascha abuddhyo avyayasayinam. So for that person, Bahushaka hi anantascha, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is multi-branched, Bhagavan says. So today they want to attain one thing. Today they have the goal of one thing. Tomorrow their goalpost will shift. They'll try to chase after that goal. Day after tomorrow their goal will shift. They'll try to attain that happiness. So daily their goal will keep changing. Therefore Bhagavan says, Bahushaka hi anantascha. Their intelligence is spread across many branches, many goals they have, except one goal, that is Atmanyanam. For Karma Yogi, Atmanyanam is the only goal, and his mind is fixated on the Atmanyanam. So therefore his intelligence is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. But for all the others who want to enjoy the results of one's action, the intelligence is multi-branched. Bhagavan says, Bahushaka hi anantascha. So therefore, their goals keep changing, and except one goal, they will never have Atma Jnana as the goal. So that is the difference between Karma Yoga and Kamya Karma. So Karma Yoga is done for the performance, for the satisfaction of Bhagavan, for the attainment of Atma, and for the purification of mind, Chitta Shuddhi, whereas Kamya Karma is performed for the attainment of trivial benefits that are only significant in the short run. So that is the difference. Now Bhagavan is going to speak about Vedas. He is going to criticize Vedas also in this verse. in the verse 42. So here, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura says, the best kind of intelligence I can have is intelligence used in the service of Krishna. That is Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. As I mentioned, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi is the resolute determination to attain Atma as the goal. And when one attains the Atma as the goal, Bhagavan, the Paramatma, is also the next goal. So the goal of Karma Yogi is both Atma and Paramatma. Paramatma is Krishna. So every activity is performed for Bhagavat Prityartham, for the satisfaction of Bhagavan. That's what Shruti says. If one performs the duty expecting the results, Dharma Shastra say one can attain those results, one can enjoy. But one will also be bound to those results. But if one have the Atma as the goal and one performs the Karma Yoga for Bhagavat Prityartham, for the satisfaction of Bhagavan, then that intelligence is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. So therefore, Bhagavan says, criticizes the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas in the 42nd verse. Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipashitaha vedavada ratapartha nanyat astiti vadinaha kamatmanaha swargapara janma karma falapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati. So in the Vedas, there is a section of people called Mimamsakas. So Mimamsakas also accept the Vedas as authoritative source. They give importance to Vedas as the ultimate authority. But the difference is they only follow certain portion of the Vedas called Karmakanda portion. So in that Karmakanda portion of the Vedas, various sacrifices are prescribed. Various kinds of yajna are prescribed. Just like I mentioned, Agnihotra sacrifice, Jyotishtoma Yogam. So there are many kinds of sacrifices that are prescribed in Karmakanda portion. Each sacrifice is meant for the satisfaction of one devata. One sacrifice is one yajna. I'll better use the word yajna. One yajna is performed for the satisfaction of Indra. One yajna is performed for the satisfaction of Varuna, etc. So all these sacrifices are performed for the satisfaction of the respective devas or devatas, and the devas and devatas give the benefit in terms of material wealth, in terms of increased lifetime. It is mentioned that one who worships Aditya Deva, Surya Narayana daily, one will have long lifetime. So this portion of the Vedas that prescribe these yajnas, different yajnas, for the satisfaction of the different devatas with the intention of attaining the material wealth or material prosperity as a goal is called Karmakanda portion of the Vedas. So Bhagavan says, Yamimam pushpitam vacham pravadanti avipashitaha. Avipashitaha, one who is not intelligent, will take the specific portion of the Vedas called Karmakanda portion of the Vedas, and they are blinded by the benefits of those yajnas. So those yajnas promise, Vedas themselves promise various material wealth as the benefit of those sacrifices. So Yamimam Pushpitam Vasham. Those words are flowery words, Bhagavan says. Why they are called flowery words? Because they are like creepers, which are flowery creepers which are full of poison. One want to perform those yajnas with the intention of going to Swarga or going to Indrapatnam or Brahmapatnam, etc. That is temporary benefit, Bhagavan says. So one should not be blinded by those flowery words. Yam imam pushpitam vacham. Flowery words of Vedas. Karmakanda portion of Vedas, Bhagavan says, you better not follow the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas. Because Karmakanda portion prescribes Kamya Karma. And when one does Kamya Karma like yajnas, etc., with the intention of achieving some Swargalokam or with the intention of achieving some material wealth or long life in this world, etc., then one will be blinded by all these desires and one will forget Atma as the goal. So rather, Bhagavan says, focus on Jnanakanda portion of the Vedas, which talks about Atma, which talks about Paramatma. and having the Atma and Paramatma as the goal. So Vedavada Ratapartha, they also speak, just like Mimamsakas, they also speak on the authority of the Vedas, but they only rely on karma. They say, by performing good karma, I'll attain good result. By performing bad karma, I'll attain bad result. So we'll keep performing good karma, we'll keep attaining good result. But when they speak of good result, they are speaking about the temporary benefits. The temporary benefits like material wealth, temporary benefits like long life, or going to Swargalokam, or becoming Indra, etc. And therefore, if one is not careful, one will be one will be enamored by those words of Vedas. Therefore, they are called Pushpitam Vacham. And one will forget the Atma as the goal. So, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi that I was talking about, the resolute determination on Atma will not arise in such person. So, therefore, Bhagavan cautions against such flowery words of Vedas. Yamimam Pushpitam Vacham Pravadanti Avipashitaha Vedavada Rata Partha Nanyat Astiti Vadinaha Kamatmanaha Swargapara. They out of desires. So this is 43rd verse. So in this slide we have 44th verse. So I am just completing those two verses before going to 44th verse. So in the 43rd verse, Kamatmanaha Swargapara Janma Karma Falapradam. They out of desire, Kamatmanaha, out of desire for attaining some temporary benefits like Swargam, etc. Swargapara Janma Karma Falapradam. They also desire to take birth. They have the cravings for enjoyment. They have the cravings for attaining power. Janma Karma Falapradam. Kriya Vishesha Bahula. They perform huge sacrifices. They make huge plans. And they also says, no, this is mentioned in Vedas. So that's why we are performing. Yes, but that is mentioned in Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. So those who only have the focus on Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas is called Mimamsakas. So Veda Vada Rata, Bhagavan says, they speak on the authority of Vedas, and they also perform Kriya Vishesha Bahulam, big sacrifices they perform, but Kamatmanaha, out of the desire they perform, those sacrifices with the goal of attainment of Swarga Para, Janma Karma Phalam, good life, good birth, good wife, etc. Janma Karma Phala Pradam, Kriya Vishesha Bahulam, Bhogaishwarya Gatim Prati. For them, what is destination? Bhogaishwaryam Gatim. They perform sacrifices, they follow the Vedas, and they follow Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas with the goal of Bhoga and Aishwarya, the enjoyment and the opulence and the power. And therefore, one cannot develop the Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. That resolute intelligence, which is fixated on Atma and which is fixated on performing the action only for the sake of satisfaction of Bhagavan, Bhagavat Prityartham, that resolute intelligence will not arise. So, what is the problem then if it doesn't arise? Okay, I'm performing this karma, I'm attaining good results. So, what is the problem in that? One will be stuck in this loop. One will not be able to come out. Okay, I do good activity, good karma, I'll get good result, I'll enjoy it. If I'll keep performing good karma, we cannot say, because the mind may get changed tomorrow. So therefore, there is a danger in this path. If one just follows karma kanda portion of the Vedas, then one is in danger because our mind may get changed. As I said, Bahushaka hi Anantascha. The person whose intelligence is not fixed, Bahushaka, is multi-branched. For that person, intelligence is multi-branched. So he has unlimited goals. Bahushaka hi Anantascha. So today he wants to attain Swargam, tomorrow he wants to become Indra, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, he wants to go to, becomes Varuna, etc. So therefore, there is no end to such desire. So Bhagavan is warning, therefore, don't be stuck in Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. And what will happen if one has the Bhoga and Aishwarya alone as the Gati? Bhoga Aishwaryam Gatim. So if someone may say, don't force me to accept Atma as the goal. I am better satisfied in accepting this Bhoga and Aishwarya as a goal. And what is wrong? I am attaining through the proper means. Vedas only promise me of these goals if I perform these duties or if I perform these yajnas. So what is the problem in that? Does anyone want to say? Answer this. Is there any problem in having Bhoga and Aishwarya alone as a goal? One will not be able to have the goal as Atma if one has only Bhoga and Aishwarya as a goal. So what is the loss then? One will not be able to achieve the supreme benefit of mukti if one is addicted to only Bhoga and Aishwarya. whether it is on this earth or in the next life, in the form of enjoyment in the Swarga or heavenly world, etc., then the Atma Jnana will not arise. Then the danger is one will lose the greatest benefit, which is Atma. One will lose the opportunity to attain Mukti. Rather, one will be bound to these limited results, limited benefits, or limited enjoyment. So, in the 44th verse that you are seeing on the slide, Bhagavan says, Bhogaishwarya Prasaktanam. If one is attached, Prashakti means attachment. If one is attached to this Bhogam and Aishwaryam, to this enjoyment and the power, then what will happen? Taya apahrita chetasam. Their Atma, their Chetas, Chittam, their consciousness is deluded by this Bhoga and Aishwarya. And being attached to this Bhoga and Aishwarya in the form of sense gratification, one will not be able to develop Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, the resolute intelligence, the complete focus on Atma. One will always be diverted by various sense enjoyment. And by the result of having this Bhoga and Aishwarya as the aim, one will lose the actual goal. The actual Vastu is Atma. That will be lost. If that is lost, there is no point in merely enjoying this Bhogam and Aishwaryam. The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, as I was mentioning, the resolute determination to have Atma and Bhagavan as the only goal will not arise in such a person who is addicted, who is attached to gratifying the senses, Bhoga and Aishwarya. So that leads to bewilderment, confusion. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadhav, and one will not be able to be fixed, Samadhi, or fixed in the Bhagavan. Atma Jnanam also will not occur, Paramatma Jnanam will also not occur, so both will not take place. That is the danger of having the Bhoga and Aishwarya as the goal. And here we are not talking about merely having Bhoga and Aishwarya as a goal. Bhagavan in the previous verse spoke about Vedas, Mimamsakas. They are a lot better than ordinary materialists because they follow Vedas and they want to enjoy the results of certain sacrifices mentioned in the Karma Kanda portion, which are also according to Vedas. Vedas only promise. Even that Bhoga and Aishwarya should be despised for one who wants to achieve liberation. Then there is nothing to speak of ordinary sense gratification which one performs without consideration of Shastras. If one has the goal as sense gratification, gratifying the senses, one may better achieve that goal through Karma Kanda portion. That is why those portions are present. So that slowly one can be molded towards Atmanyanam. But if one is merely having Bhoga and Aishwarya as the only goal, and at any expense I will achieve, if some people have, then it becomes, then they resort to various sinful means to achieve that goal. So Bhagavan is not even speaking about such people here. Bhagavan is speaking about Karmakanda people, Mimamsakas. Even that he wants, don't have the Bhoga and Aishwarya as a goal, because that will not lead to resolute determination of Atma as the only goal. So, then Bhagavan says in the next verse, Traigunya Vishayo Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. As I was mentioning, this Karmakanda portion mainly deals with three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Now I'm introducing the three gunas for the first time. So these three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, is present in every object, every action, every jiva within this universe. Only the difference is in the proportion. Some activities or some object may have greater proportion of Sattvam, lesser proportion of Rajas and Tamas. Some will have greater proportion of Rajas and lesser proportion of Sattva and Tamas. But the three gunas make up whole of the activities of this world. And this Atma is now stuck in association of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. And that is the cause of bondage here. Sattva means mode of goodness. Rajas means mode of passion. Rajo means Rajas means having the desire of sense gratification as the goal, having the lust and greed as the goal. And tamas means total darkness, that laziness, where one is not even interested in material activities. A person who is having greater proportion of rajoguna is interested in the materialistic activity. A person who has greater proportion of sattva is interested in activities related to atmanyanam. But a tamoguna person is neither interested in the activities of atmanyanam nor interested in the activities of material. That is even worse. And that person is in the dense darkness. But Bhagavan says, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. It is not that because Sattva-guna is good for cultivation of Atmanyanam, one should stay in Sattva-guna always. Why? Why one should not stay always in Sattva-guna is because one cannot stay always in Sattva-guna in this world. The Sattva-guna is always mixed with Rajoguna, certain proportion of Rajoguna and certain proportion of Tamoguna. So if there is agitation in the Rajoguna and Tamoguna, one will lose the position of Sattva-guna and one falls down from Sattva-guna. And there are many examples in scriptures. We all know about Vishwamitra. He was established in Sattva-guna through meditation. But a mere agitation caused him to enjoy the senses. So Sattva-guna is not pure. It shows that therefore, if one is established only in Sattva-guna, then there is no danger. But in this world, because it is not possible, Bhagavan says, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, come out of all the three gunas, including Sattva-guna. Then what is my position after coming out of Sattva-guna also? Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryogakshemam Atmavan. You become Atmavan, Bhagavan says. You will be satisfied in Atmanyanam, completely immersed in Atma, where there is no trace of Rajas and Tamas. That is called Shuddha Sattvam. One is above the material Sattvam, material Rajas and material Tamas. That is called Shuddha Sattvam, where there is no influence of Rajas and Tamas. So there is no danger of falling down again. And in that position, Nirdvandvo, that person is not bewildered by the dualities. Today there is happiness, tomorrow there is distress. That is the nature of this world. Today someone will be praising us, and the same person will be tomorrow will be spreading infame about us. So always this world is made of dvandva. If there is pleasure, there is dukkham. If there is manam, there is avamanam. If there is night, there is day. So the entire universal actions is comprised of this dvandva called dualities. Always there are dualities within this world. So this Atmavan, who is now above the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, become indifferent to the dvandva, to the dualities of the world. He is not affected by the dualities of the world, like happiness and distress, like profit or loss. There is nothing profit or loss in this world. There is nothing happiness or distress. No fame or no infame. Nothing will dislodge that Atmavan from his position of Atmanyanam. So therefore he becomes above the three gunas. He becomes above the three dvandvam called dualities, and then Nitya Sattvasto. He is situated in the Nitya Sattvam. Nitya Sattvasto. He is situated in the Sattvam, which is called Shuddha Sattvam. So therefore, one will not be coming down, falling down from that position. Ordinary Sattva Guna is always mixed with Rajas and Tamas. But when one is in the Shuddha Sattvam, because of lack of influence of Rajas and Tamas, one is always situated. So therefore, Bhagavan says, Nitya Sattvasto Niryogakshemam. That such a person is also not worried to protect what that person is having or to hanker what he doesn't have. So in this world, always we want to achieve something that we don't have. If we are earning 4 lakhs per annum, we want to make it to 8 lakhs per annum. If we are earning 8 lakhs per annum, we want to make it to 10 lakhs per annum. Or if you are earning 1 crore per annum, still there is no satisfaction. We want to earn more. We want to become get higher posts. So therefore, that always we want something, and always we try to protect that which we have. If someone comes and steals our money purse, we are immediately worried because we are trying to protect it. So this Atmavan is not worried about protecting what he has, nor hankering for what he doesn't have. So therefore, nir yogakshema. So Bhagavan says, if you come above Traigunya Vishaya Vedas, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, if you rise above this Vedic Karmakanda portion, which talk about the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, you will be above the dualities, Nirdvandvaha, dualities in the form of happiness and distress, fame and infame, profit or loss, which characterize this world, Nirdvandvo, Nitya Sattvasto, and such a Sattvam is not ordinary Sattvam, it is Shuddha Sattvam, so you always stay in the Sattva Guna, Nitya Sattvasto, Nir Yoga Kshemam, so there is no need to protect what you have, there is no need to hanker for what you don't have, because he has got the highest wealth of Atma. So all the other wills that he possesses are all trivial. So therefore, nir yoga kshemam, he is not worried about attaining something or protecting what he has. Atmavan. So therefore, he is called Atmavan. He is established in Atma, Bhagavan says. So in the 46th verse, Yavanartha Udapane Sarvataha Sampludodake Tavan Sarveshu Vedeshu Brahmanasya Vijanataha. So all purposes served by a small will, Yavanartha Udapane Sarvataha Sampludodake, that can be fulfilled by a great reservoir of water also. Similarly, all the purposes of Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So, which means you are now talking about no Vedas speak about Karma Kanda, they speak about the attainment of Swarga, etc. So, should I not hanker after that? Bhagavan says it is a small will, whereas Atmanyanam is like a reservoir of water. You are hankering after that Karma Kanda portion, trivial benefits. But if you attain the Atmanyanam, which is compared to a ocean, a big reservoir of water, whatever you can attain by that small well can also be attained by the big reservoir of water, isn't it? So by Atmajnana, one can get anything and everything. So therefore, one should know the purpose of Vedas. Why it is important to know the purpose of Vedas is, if one is only interested in the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas, one may wrongly think that Bhoga and Aishwarya is the only goal. Because most 99% of the Karmakanda portion of the Vedas only talk about attaining some benefit, attaining some Swarga, etc. If we think that is the only goal of, only purpose of Vedas, then we are in ignorance. Then why those portions of the Vedas are mentioned? Because that is for different kinds of people who want to have that enjoyment. Okay, so you enjoy this way, and that also leads to gradual purification, but that's a very gradual process. Everyone need not adopt the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. If one is convinced that Atma is the highest goal and Bhagavan's Preeti, satisfaction of Bhagavan is the highest goal, then one can immediately have the Atma as the goal, continue performing Karma Yoga for Chitta Shuddhi, purification of consciousness, and ultimately one will be established in Atma, just like in this verse, Atmavan, Nirdvandvo, Nitya Sattvasto, Niryoga Kshemam, Atmavan. So therefore, one must understand why the Vedas are having so many sections, why there is Karma Kanda, why there is Jnana Kanda, what if you only study Karma Kanda, then one will only understand the goal of Vedas as Bhoga and Aishwarya. But if one has a holistic view of the Vedas, then one can understand this Vedas is to reform a person gradually and bring one to the person of Atma and realize the Paramatma. That is the goal of Vedas. So therefore, self-realization, the Atma Jnanam, along with Bhagavat Jnanam, along with the Paramatma Jnanam, is the goal of the Vedas. So one must be conversant with what is the purpose of the Vedas. That's what Bhagavan says in the 46th verse. Is it time? In the 47th verse, Karmanyevadikaraste mam phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbur mate sango astu akarmani. So Bhagavan now says, so this karma yoga you perform without having the Bhoga and Aishwarya as the goal, having the Atma alone as the goal, and in that way you will be able to attain Atma and attain Amritatvam, by attaining which there is no need to take rebirth. So now he is laying out how to follow this Nishkama Karma Yoga. So for practicing this Nishkama Karma Yoga, we have to develop some attitudes. What are those attitudes? Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You do this prescribed duty, which is the duty of Kshatriya. You are supposed to do that, so you must do it. But don't desire after the results. And we already mentioned, Bhoga and Aishwarya should not be the goal of Karma Yoga. Atma should alone be the goal of Karma Yoga, and Bhagavat Jnanam, knowledge about Krishna, should be the goal of Karma Yoga. So, therefore, one should not have desire to enjoy the results of the work. And also, Karma Neva, do not think that you are entitled to, don't think that you are causing the results. No, one may say, okay, I'm not interested in the desire, in the result of performing this action. But still, it will produce some result, no? So whatever action that I perform, okay, I'm performing without expecting the results, that will produce some results. And won't that affect me? If someone asks, Bhagavan says, no, don't even think that those results are produced by you. If you think that you are producing the results, you are thinking that you are the doer of the activity. So if Bhagavan says, one should not consider oneself as the doer of the activity also. How is it possible then? So one should give up the sense of, I'm doing this duty, I'm causing the results. So therefore, you don't think that you are causing the results. You are performing the action without desiring the results. Fine. But that will anyway produce some results. Now you don't think that you have produced the results, which means you have to give up the sense of doership. I am doing this action and I am causing the result. That sense of doership also one must give up. Perform your duty equipoised. In the matter of yogastha kuru ma karma fellow heturbur mate sango astu akarmani. And also don't be performed to not doing the duty. Because that is also one form of attachment. You are attached to not doing the duty. So if you are performing the duty with the desire of attaining something, and if you are not performing the duty to not attain something, both mean the same. It is just two sides of the same coin. Attachment and repulsion, both are same. You are attached to not doing the duty. That in that way one can understand. Both mean the same. So therefore, ma karma phala heturbur, you don't think about the karma phala. You don't think about the fruits of the action. And you don't think that you are causing the results of the activity. Stay equipoised. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Yogastha kuru karma. You do the karma. Kuru karmani. Do the duty. Perform your duty. Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. You will be bound to the results only if you think of enjoying the results of the action. If one performs the result of the, if one performs any activity, even if it is a very small activity, but with the desire of enjoying the results of the activity, one will be bound. Simple equation. Or if one performs a big, very big activity, but without even expecting a very small result of that activity, one will not be bound. Very simple equation. So that's what Bhagavan says in the 48th verse. Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya. Don't be attached. Sangam tyaktva. Tyaktva means to give up. Sangam means attachment. If you do even a small activity but expecting some results, you are bound for that. You will be enjoying or suffering the results of the action. So better give up attachment. Give up all sorts of attachment to both failure and success in the activity, because you are not causing the result. You are just acting as an instrument, my instrument. So whatever you produce is not what you produce, is what I produce. So therefore, you give up attachment to success or failure. You give it to me. I'll take care of your success and result. That's what Bhagavan says. And if one is situated in that attitude, samatvam yoga muchyate. Bhagavan says such equanimity is called yoga. Then Bhagavan says, Durena hi avaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya, buddhau sharanam anvicha, kripana phala hetavaha. So keep all the Durena hi avaram karma, all the abominable activities, you can see in the slide, keep all the abominable activities far distant by devotional service. Durena hi avaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya. What is here avaram karma? Any activity performed with the intention of enjoying the results of the action is avaram karma here. Durena hi avaram karma, buddhi yoga dhananjaya. Buddhi yoga we already mentioned. That is nishkama karma yoga. Buddhi yoga means nishkama karma yoga. So keep all that activities which are performed for the with the expectation of attaining some trivial benefits far away, and buddhav sharanam anvicha, surrender unto the Lord, sharanam anvicha, kripana phala hetavaha. If you want to enjoy the results of the activity, one is called kripana. Bhagavan says it's like one earns money and one wants to spend all of one's money for one's own benefit. We say such a person is stingy person. That person is just interested in the immediate benefit. So if you want to enjoy immediate result of your activity, it is just like that. Kripana phala hetava. Only kripanas, stingy people, will want to enjoy the results of one's action. And in that way, they get bound more and more. They forget the highest benefit of Atma, and they want to enjoy the immediate benefit of attainment of wealth or some position or etc. 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 So therefore, kripana phala hetavaga, they are called kripana. And also in yesterday I mentioned in the last class I mentioned Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajnavalkya describes the definition of kripana. There the great sage Yajnavalkya says, kripana is one who dies without knowing Brahman. If one is giving up the body without the knowledge of Brahman, that person is called kripana. Means that person has led the whole life thinking of only immediate benefit, thinking of only gratifying the senses, one's own senses, etc. So therefore, that person did not have Brahman or Atma as the highest goal. So that person is dying without knowing the Atma. So that person is called kripana according to Yajnavalkya. So the same definition here, kripana phalayatava. If one just desires the immediate results of one's activity, one is called kripana. And misers. So here, stingy people we say, misers. Those who want to enjoy the fruits of their work are called misers. So therefore, no one should satisfy oneself, the senses. One should act for Bhagavad Priti, Krishna Priti. Sarvam Krishnarpanam Astu, we say, no? So for the satisfaction of Bhagavan, one should perform all the duties, and one should not be attached to the success or failure, because we are not causing that result also. That result also we are not causing. So therefore we have to give up the sense of doership. We have to give up expecting the fruits of action. So we should just perform that action because it leads to Chitta Shuddhi, and Chitta Shuddhi leads to Atmanyanam. With that understanding, one has to perform karma, and then that becomes Karma Yoga. So in the 50th verse, Buddhi Yukto Jahatiha Ube Sukrute Dushkrute Tasmat Yoga Yujyasva Yoga Karmasu Kaushalam. So when one acts in this way, in the way, which way? In the way of giving up the sense of doership, giving up expecting the results, and acting only for the sake of attaining Atma as the goal and satisfying Bhagavan, then what will happen is, Ube Shukrute Duskrute, one will be getting rid of both good and bad activities. The good and bad activities make no difference to such a person because he has already come out. We already mentioned Nirdvandvo. Goodness and badness also are side of same coin in this material world. Any good action or bad action, we say only from the material terms, and that makes no sense to a Atmajnani. So when one is already above Nirdvandvo, above the Dvandvam, that person is also above the sukrite dushkrite. Fortune or misfortune also doesn't matter to him. Tasmat yoga yujasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. And this way of acting, Bhagavan says, yoga karmasu kaushalam. It is like an art. Because it's very difficult to act in a way that doesn't produce any material results. It is called art by Bhagavan, which means it is very difficult. Karma yoga, in that sense, perfecting the karma yoga is difficult. So therefore, Bhagavan says it is yoga karma sukausham. It doesn't mean that one should not begin karma. That already we mentioned. Neha vikrama nasho asti. Even one begins slightly karma yoga, that benefit that one gets is eternal. It is always carry forwarded to the next janma also, and one continues to do karma yoga next life. If one is not perfect in karma yoga in this life, one will continue doing karma yoga in the next life. So pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Biggest danger one can be able to overcome by practicing karma yoga. That's what Bhagavan says in the previous. So same thing here he says, yoga karmasu kaushalam, one can be, one has to learn the art of performing karma yoga. Karmasu kaushalam. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam tektva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmukta padam gachanti anamayam. So what is the result of this Nishkama Karma Yoga is said in the 51st verse. If one becomes free from the cycle of birth and death, padam gachanti anamayam, and that person who is perfect in Karma Yoga reaches the situation where there are no miseries, anamayam, padam gachanti anamayam, janma bandha vinirmukta. One is totally liberated by performing this Karma Yoga. As I already mentioned, this Karma Yoga leads to Chitta Shuddhi. Chitta Shuddhi leads to Atma Jnanam. And when one gets Atma Jnanam, there is no need to take birth again. One is relieved of the cycle of birth and death. And one attains Paramapadam, Padam Gachanti Anamayam. So, because such person is situated in Atma now, the portion of the Vedas that speak of Yamimam Pushpitam Vacham, that Karmakanda portion of the Vedas, which are tempting, I already mentioned, they promise of various benefits. Such words don't confuse him anymore because he knows what is the highest goal. He knows what is the purpose of the Vedas. So, because his intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, he is no longer deluded by those words in the Vedas that promise material benefits. So he become indifferent to those portion of the Vedas, Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. Indifference means he is not worried about those portion of the Vedas because he is already fixed in the Atma. Shruti viprati panna te yada stasyasi nichalam samadau achala buddhis tata yogam amapyasi. So when one's mind is no longer disturbed by those karma, disturbed means tempted by those words of the Vedas, which promise trivial benefits like attaining Swarga, etc. One is situated in the Atma, one's intelligence is fixated on the Atma, and then one will achieve the divine consciousness. So, Bhagavan here summarizes, it's a very fast forward summary of Karma Yoga. Bhagavan describes in detail Karma Yoga in the next chapter, 3rd chapter, and also in the 5th chapter. That we will see in the future sessions. So here we have only spoken the high level overview of the Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga. So now Arjuna gets some doubt. So far Bhagavan spoke about the position of a person who has attained the result of the Karma Yoga or Atmavan. He is above the Nirdvando, Nitya Sattvasto, Niryoga Kshemam, Atmavan, described through so many words, and he is beyond the delusion of the words in the Vedas which talk about the trivial benefits. So he is talking about Jivan Mukta. Bhagavan is so far talking about Jiva Mukta. And because his intelligence is fixed on Atma, he is also called Sthita Prajna. So Arjuna now wants to know qualities of such Sthita Prajna. So he is asking few questions about Sthita Prajna. So here Sthita Prajna is a Jivan Mukta, one whose consciousness has attained a divine status. What are his symptoms? How can I identify that person? Arjuna asks this question. Arjuna Uvacha, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha? What are his symptoms? Samadhi stasya Keshava. Sthitadi kim prabhasheta? Kim prabhasheta? How does he speak? Kim asita? How does he sit? Or how does he restrain his senses from the sense object? Kim rajeta? How does he walk? Or how does he respond to the sense object? These are the questions that Arjuna asks, for which Bhagavan answers from the next verse. First he says, Shri Bhagavan Varsha 2.55. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyeva atmana tushta sthita prajna tadokshite. So when one is not, he says, when one is not disturbed by the desires that are coming from the mind, that are coming, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. This mind is seeking various results because of the past memory, that is called vasana. So when we perform any action, we get some experience, and that experience creates some memory or samskara, and from that memory comes vasana. Vasana means tendencies. We are inclined to enjoy this world in a certain way that is dictated by vasanas, which are present in the mind. So that keeps hovering an atma. Sometime we want to achieve, enjoy this, because our vasanas is propelling the jiva to experience that. Next day, the another vasana becomes prominent. So because of the various vasanas that are present, vasanas means tendencies, because of various tendencies that one has, always there is some one or the other kind of desire that keeps coming in the mind. So that is because of manogatan, sarvan partha manogatan. Mind is wavering. Because of the mental concoction, one develops various desires due to these vasanas. But for a Sthita Prajna, there is no such vasana. There is no such desire for sense gratification. That's how that. So he asks, no, Arjuna asks, what is the definition of Sthita Prajna? So Bhagavan is talking about symptoms of Sthita Prajna here. So the first symptom of Sthita Prajna is there is no more vasana, there is no tendency to enjoy sense gratification, because vasanas create those efforts to enjoy. So those tendencies create those efforts. Because that Sthita Prajna is situated in the Atmanyanam, there is no more tendency to enjoy the senses in different ways. So Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha, sarva kamam, that is arising out of manogatan, from the mind, from the vasanas. Prajahati, he has given up already. Then if he has given up all the kamam, how is he enjoying? Atmanyeva atmana tushta. He is also enjoying, but he is enjoying in the self, enjoying the atma. Atmanyeva atmana tushta. Sthita prajna tadochate. So such a person, if you find such a person, you understand him to be a sthita prajna, one whose consciousness is fixed. So just like Prahalad, as you can see, he is disturbed by so many demons. His consciousness is not dislodged. So he is a sthita prajna. Then he describes few more symptoms. I'll quickly wrap up the chapter. Just give me some time. So in the 56th verse, he says, Dukeshu anudvijnamana, sukeshu vigata spruha, vitaraga bhaya krodha sthitir muniruchate. So such a person is not disturbed by the miseries. Just like Prahalad, he was subjected to various miseries, but Prahalad was not disturbed. Dukeshu anudvijnamana, sukeshu vigata spruha. Such a person is not elated by happiness. So we can see these are all tendencies of ordinary people in this world. When we get some distress, it will bog us down in misery. When we get something enjoyment, we become elated by the happiness. So, which means one is influenced by Shuka and Dukkha. But a Sthita Prajna is not like that. Dukkeshu anudvijnamana, sukeshu vigata spruha, vita raga bhaya krodha, vita ragam. There is no attachment. He is not attached to any kind of sense enjoyment. Vita bhayam, there is no fear. Because he is fully fixated on Atma, he knows that this Atma is indestructible, only the body is destructible. So there is no need to fear for anything. Vita raga, vita bhayam, vita krodham. So krodham comes only if one is not able to satisfy the desire. So because there is no desire, why there is no desire? There is no tendency, there is no vasana for enjoyment. So there is no krodham. Vita raga bhaya krodham. Sitadir munir uchate. So this is another symptom of Siddha Prajna. Yes, sarvatra नाभि स्नेह तत्त प्राप्य शुभाशुभम नाभि नंदन्ति ना द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. So one day he may it is 57th verse which is not there on the slide. So one day one may that Sthita Prajna will get something Shubham, next day one get Ashubham, but he is na binandanti, he doesn't rejoice, na dveshti, he doesn't hate, he doesn't rejoice, he is not attached to any person or anything of this world. So therefore, if another person brings in some happiness, he is not going to praise, oh, you are such a nice person, because ordinary people we praise because we want something from that person, so we praise. Siddhadir Munir has nothing to attain in this world, so therefore he doesn't have any attachment to any person, so there is no need to please that person, or there is no need to hate that person also. Because that person is inflicting some harm, there is no need to hate that person for Siddha Prajna. Because Siddha Prajna thinks, because of prarabdha karma I am experiencing, so that person is just an instrument. So there is no need to show anger towards that person. That's how he thinks. Na binandanti, na dveshti. He doesn't hate anyone. He doesn't love, or when I mean love, is not going to praise anyone unnecessarily. Tasya prajna pratishtita. Such a person's consciousness is fixed. Then what about Siddha Prajna's control? How does he control his senses? Vishaya vinivartante. Oh, sorry. Yada samharate chayam kurma angani sarvashah indriyani indira artebish tasya prajna pratisthita. So he is able to withdraw the senses, all the sense organ, like a tortoise. If you see the tortoise, it can retract all its limbs into the body when it wants. It can push out all the limbs out of the body if it wants, because its limbs are under total control. Similarly, the Sthita Prajna, if it is required, he is ready to use the senses. If it is not required, he is ready to pull back the senses, just like tortoise. Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani sarvashaha. Just like a kurmam, a tortoise is able to withdraw all the senses when there is no need, and is able to use the limbs when there is a need. A Sthita Prajna is also, if required, if the situation demands, for some purpose, which is for satisfaction of Bhagavan alone, then he is ready to use the senses. So, and does it mean that he is not using senses just like a diseased person is not using senses? If you see a diseased person admitted in ICU or because of some accident, etc., that person is also not using senses, no? So then what is the difference between that person and Sthita Prajna? So the difference is Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasyat param drishya nivartate. That person, because of some illness, may not be using the senses, but that doesn't mean that person is Sthita Prajna, because there is a tendency for enjoyment. The tendency of the enjoyment should also be destroyed, not just merely engaging the senses in the object, external objects. Merely engaging the senses in the external object is only one step, but the actual success lies in destroying the very tendency for enjoyment of the object. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So when does one get that strength to give up that desire for sense gratification also? Sense gratification is one thing where we try to enjoy various objects, but then there is also desire for sense gratification. That becomes a cause of us pushing ourselves to enjoy in different ways. So rasavarjam, that desire must also have gone. When that desire goes, rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. When one realizes the higher Atma, when one realizes Bhagavan, in that Atma Sukha one forgets the ordinary chapala shukam, the frivolous enjoyment one forgets. So here process of restriction from sense enjoyment is like rules and regulation. a diseased person is not advised to eat this or eat that, that is fine, but there is still tendency. So therefore, one has to cease from the tendencies also, which is possible only if param drishtva nivartate. If one realizes the param satyam or vastu, paravastu, which is the atma and the paramatma, Bhagavan. When one realizes that higher sukham, one naturally feels disgusted at the lower sukham. That is the way one can artificially restraining the senses will not work. That's what Bhagavan says. So why is it so? So Bhagavan explains the next verse. Why is it so that one is not, it is not enough just to artificially restrain the senses. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipashitaha indriyani pramatini harapam prashabam manaha. Because the senses are very, very, very strong. Very strong. They are very strong. They can even take away one's mind from Atma, even for a vipashitaha, one who is intelligent, one who knows the knowledge of Shastra, one who has the knowledge of Shastra, one who knows what should be done, what should not be done, vipashitaha. Even an intelligent person's mind can be deluded by the senses. So the senses are that strong. Indriyani pramatini haranti prashabam manaha. Pramadini, because they are very strong. We are not talking about mind getting deluded of a fool. Here Bhagavan is saying even vipashitaha, once, even if one is intelligent, if one is a viveki, that person's mind can also be dislodged from the consciousness, and therefore one should be very careful in sense control. So then Bhagavan further describes, I'm just quickly going through all of it. So Bhagavan is describing various stages how by the sense enjoyment one falls down into the material world, material samsara. So he says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. First step is we feel, okay, let us desire this, let us desire to attain this. Dhyayato, that is a contemplation. First, that is the first step. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa. Vishaya Dhyanam. We contemplate something. So at that point, that enjoyment is in the mental level. There is a desire for sense gratification. So we begin to contemplate, if I enjoy this object in this way, it will be very nice. We begin to think. And gradually, without our knowledge, we start to develop attachment. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha Sangasteshu Upajayate. Attachment. Sangha means attachment. Teshu, in them, in the sense objects, we develop attachment. What does it mean? We begin to plan to acquire those sense objects. Sangasteshu Upajayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. From that attachment, Sanjayate Kamaha. The strong desire to experience that object comes, and that is called lust. So 3 stages: thinking, feeling, willing. Just in the beginning, we are just thinking, contemplating, meditating on the enjoyment. When one meditates on the enjoyment, that leads to attachment, mild attachment. So we begin to feel how it will be if we experience that happiness. Then we place resolution. Now I want to enjoy. Then that becomes a great force. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha, that becomes lust. Then there is a force behind the lust. So we want to enjoy, we want to possess that object and enjoy. And Kamat Krodho Bijayate. When there is a lust, there is a anger also. If the object of enjoyment is not attained, then that transforms into anger. And when lust and anger overtakes one's mind, then that will lead to delusion. Moha. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. Moha means delusion. We forget. We forget the Atma. All that instructions about Atma, all the instructions about what should be done, what should not be done is forgotten. Smriti Vibramha. It leads to forgetfulness. Perhaps we will forget Atma Jnanam also. Just so many examples. Ajamila. In the beginning, he was a great Brahmana, doing all his duties perfectly. But because of attachment to a prostitute, he gave up everything. He forgot he gave up everything to the extent that he forgot everything and became involved in satisfying her. So that is because of smriti vibhramaha. One forgets. Due to that forgetfulness, the memory goes off. Smriti Bramshat Buddhi Nasho. When the memory is gone, Buddhi is gone, intelligence is gone. And when one intelligence is gone, we do not know what is right, what is wrong. We crave for various sense objects, and that will lead to Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. One falls into this samsara, and that leads to bondage. So Bhagavan describes various stages of fall down here because of uncontrolled mind. So he then says, so a person who is able to therefore come out of all this attachment and aversion caused by these sense objects and is able to control all his senses through niyamam, such person will attain prasadam adhigachati. Bhagavan's complete mercy is upon such a person who is able to control his senses without any attachment or aversion. And when what happens when one gets the mercy of Bhagavan? Prasade sarva dukkhanam hani rasyopajayate. When one gets the Bhagavan's mercy, there is no longer any distraction of the mind. There is no longer any distress. So the mind prasanna chetaso hi ashu buddhi paryavatishti. So the mind becomes peaceful and one is able to develop the buddhi paryavastiti. So the buddhi intelligence becomes fixated on Atma very quickly by Bhagavan's mercy. But if one is not nasti buddhi ayuktasya, if one is not performing buddhi yoga, then there is no yoga means connection with Jivatma and Paramatma. If there is no connection between Jiva and Paramatma, then there is no mercy, prasadam, there is no Bhagavan's mercy. And if there is no Bhagavan's mercy, nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhavayati shantir, there is no fixed intelligence. And if there is no fixed intelligence, there is no steady mind. Mind is fully disturbed because of various sense engagements. And because the mind is fully disturbed, fully controlled by the senses, there is no peace, Bhagavan says. Ashantasya kuta sukam. If there is no shanti, where is the possibility of peace? So there is no question of happiness if there is no peace, if the senses are agitated. And in the next verse, Bhagavan goes one step ahead and says, you need not engage all the five senses. Even if one of the senses is engaged in the sense object, that itself is enough to destroy the intelligence totally, Bhagavan says. So as a strong wing sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. So just first sense, only one sense wants to enjoy one sense enjoyment. So therefore, dhyayato vishayam pumsam, we begin to contemplate. Then from contemplation, attachment, sangat sanjayate kama, from attachment, lust comes, kamat krodho vijayate, from lust, anger comes, from anger, delusion comes, from delusion, smriti vibhramaha, one will forget the good instructions because of the memory, losing of memory, and smriti vibhramaha, when one loses memory, buddhi nashat, the buddhi is totally destroyed, and so there is no peace in the mind. If the senses are agitated, there is no peace. This doesn't mean we have to agitate all the five senses. Even if one of the senses is led astray, all the other senses follow. If one see, it is all happening in the mind, we must understand. It is a mind which is the center of all the sense action. So if the sense is not under control, mind cannot be in control. If mind is not in control, then senses, all the other senses cannot also be controlled. So therefore Bhagavan says, Indriyana hi charatam yanmano anu vidyate tadasya harati prajnam vayur nama yavam basi. Just like a strong wind, if you see some YouTube videos, the waves in middle of the sea, it is so strong. Just see some YouTube videos, so strong. Big ships also, they oscillate too much. Sometimes they also get some big ship. I'm not talking about small ships. In the middle of the sea, the waves are so high, so huge, and it can topple a big ship also sometimes. That we have seen. So similarly, even one of the senses is compared to this strong wind, strong waves in the middle of the sea that can topple one man's intelligence. and one begins to fall into samsara just by engaging one of the senses. So therefore one must have senses refrained from sense object, and that is indication of a steady intelligence. Tasmat yasya mahabaho nigritani sarvashah. Nigritani, if one is able to control all the sarvashahas, all the senses, from indriyani indriya artebhyash, from indriya artham, from the object of sense enjoyment, if the indriyas are controlled, then tasya prajna pratishtita, then that man's intelligence is fixed. Sthita prajna. So he is a sthita prajna. So that must be practiced under proper guru. One must first identify a proper guru who is already established in the Atmanyanam. There is no use in following a guru who is not established in the Atmanyanam. So therefore one must find out such a proper bona fide spiritual master, and that person is eligible for liberation. We already mentioned Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Acharyavan, one who possesses Acharya, one who has Acharya or Guru, Purusho Veda. He knows the Purusha, Param Purusha. He can know the Lord. And when one knows Bhagavan, Atmanyanam and Bhagavat Jnanam, then that person is a suitable candidate for liberation. So, last 3 verses, just we'll quickly wind up. So, Sthita Prajna's day and night. What is night for all beings? So, everyone is interested in everything else than Atma, whereas Sthita Prajna is not interested in anything else than Atma. So therefore, Sthita Prajna's day, or Sthita Prajna's area of activeness, we can say, is the area of sleep for others. Sthita Prajna is active in cultivation of Atma, in spiritual progress, whereas all the others are asleep in these activities. And the Sthita Prajna is asleep in the activities of sense gratification, whereas everyone else is only active in the activities of the sense gratification. That's what Bhagavan says in the 69th verse. Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani yani sa nisha pashyata munihi. So therefore, there are 2 kinds of intelligence. Sthita Prajna's intelligence is fixed on Atma and Paramatma. So he is awake in those activities. An ordinary materialist, that materialist, we can also find so many intelligent materialists here. They are very cunning in exploiting people. They are very cunning in extracting others' work and using it for their happiness. That also requires some intelligence, no? So that material intelligence is fixed on the sense objects. So that is night for Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna is not intelligent in those activities. That's why we say such people are not suitable for living in this world. So therefore, one must be intelligent, not in material way, how to exploit people, how to enjoy senses in various ways, but one must be intelligent in understanding Atma and also Paramatma. So this is the final test. That Sthita Prajna, because he is living, he has to engage his senses anyway because of the prarabdha karma. Till the prarabdha karma gets over, one has to stay in this body, and this body means the 5 senses. One has to engage the 5 senses. But still, despite the engagement of the 5 senses, if one is able to maintain peace, then that person is a Sthita Prajna. It's just like how a ocean is undisturbed. So many rivers may come in. Similarly, a Sthita Prajna, who is Atmajnani, who is situated in the body, may use his body for some purposes, but he is not disturbed, just like how a ocean is not disturbed. So Bhagavan, by various analogy, tries to give an understanding of how a Sthita Prajna should look like, so that we may be well informed. So when living entity becomes desireless, there is a desire that is only for Bhagavat Prityartham, I already mentioned, to attain Atma as the goal and to give up the false ego that one is this body, and to identify with Atma, who is a servant of Paramatma, who is servant of Krishna. So therefore, because one is servant of Krishna, one should act in a way to satisfy Bhagavan. So therefore, one must give this ahankara and mamakara. Nirmamo nirahankara sasantim adhigachati. Nirmamaha. Mamaha means the sense of I. I am so and so. We attach this sense of I to the body. Everything is in relation to the body. So first one must disengage from the identification of the body. One must be situated in the Atma. And this Atma is nothing but the servant of Paramatma, Krishna. So when one is situated in the real identity, one is giving up the false identity. Then in that also one also gives up nirahankaraha, the false sense of um, I and the nirmamaha, false sense of proprietorship. So both one gives. I'm possessing this. This is my wife. This is my husband. This is my bed, my car, so on. That sense of proprietorship is also false because that is also in relation to the body. But I'm not this body. I'm Atma. So if I'm identifying other objects in relation to the body, that is also a kind of ignorance. So both nirahankaraha, both false ego must be given up, and nirmamaha, the sense of possession must be given up. And then what is the desire then? For the Bhagavad Prityartham. Everything that Siddha Prajna does is only for the satisfaction of Bhagavan. So that is a perfect stage of Krishna Bhakti. And that leads to the real peace. And that is the way of godly life. Last verse in this chapter. येषा ब्राह्म्यस्थिति पार्थ नैनं प्राप्य विमुह्यति शितावास्यम अंतकालेपि ब्रह्माणम Brahma Nirvanam Ruchati. So one attains the highest Vaikuntha Lokam, attains the liberation if one is situated in this consciousness even at the time of death. So there is no, if we are able to lead the life in that consciousness, there is no need to even worry about what will happen. Because Bhagavan says, even at the Antakale api, even if one gets that consciousness at the time of death, one will be liberated. Then there is no need to think that when one is leading a life like a Sthita Prajna, one will not get moksha. So one is assured. Bhagavan promises moksha for such a person who is fixated on Atma and Bhagavan. So this is the last verse in this chapter. I'm sorry for taking extra time. If one wants to ask any question, please go ahead and unmute and ask. Else we'll end for the day. So please unmute and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you all for joining. We'll end for the day if there is no doubt. If you want to ask doubt, please post in the chat box or unmute and ask. Okay, so we'll end for the day then. Thank you for joining.